Good morning, everyone. So I thought I would probably start by explaining and maybe apologizing for my wardrobe choice this morning. I've been spending a ton of time on Ancestry.com, and I found out it's addictive. It's better than Tinder. My wife likes it better than Tinder. But yeah, I found out that I'm like a quarter Viking. And so I'm trying to embrace my spirit animal, which just happens to be the wolf. So no, it was just a funny t-shirt, and I figured what the hell I'll wear it. Be out there on tour, and people are like, man, it's like $1,500 for a VDI desktop. I can buy a Tiger piece or go to Tiger Direct and buy a PC for $399. And I said, okay, let me ask you something. This is what I used to call the typewriter story. If I could take a salesperson who's $1 million producer for your organization and make them 5% more productive through some types of technologies, that's $50,000 to your top line. Do you really care what a VDI desktop costs? It's funny, I told that story at Goldman Sachs. They're like, yeah, we have like $1 billion of intellectual property on every PC. I'm like, that's good for $100,000 a seat for our software. They did not think that was funny. They validated my parking, but then I moved along. But I moved accent, but that's crazy. But the other thing is that we've got to also plan for this time where any device, any place, any time has got to at least have the potential to deliver that productive workspace, which is cool to watch, like what VMware's doing with AirWatch, Secure Content Locker. I mean, again, these are all tools that you can put together in almost a Lego-like fashion to get to the problems that you're actually trying to solve. Now, you probably don't have this here in Minnesota, but in the rest of the country, end users are abusive, they're volatile, they're unpredictable, and they break stuff. Anyone have those types of users in their environment? Yeah, a couple of us, right? And so we're going to plan for that, and we're going to try to design around it. Take that human volatility into and yet out of the equation as we kind of build these architectures. So tons of noise in the market right now. I mean, whether it's cloud, hybrid, VDI, application virtualization, Azure, AWS, app volumes, layering. I mean, there's just so many both buzzwords and very real things that my only advice and what I'm hoping to kind of instill today in this presentation is come back to the basics of what problems are we actually trying to solve. My personal opinion is that we got very spoiled by Moore's Law, right? It made things so cheap and so prolific and so powerful that the easiest thing was just it's why I call it worst case computing. Give everyone everything because they might need it. And it's so cheap, who cares? But scale got away from us, I think. I think scale became our enemy. And so my hope is that the technologies that I'm going to walk you through today, or more or less the methodology, helps you bring scale back into your power sphere, right? So scale's going to work for you. Do something once, have it affect 1,000, 10,000 users, as opposed to having to go, device by device by device, or kind of use some tool. So these are just some examples of what I'm seeing out there. But this is where it gets kind of interesting. Most of us have a ton of different users. I would venture to say that there's probably no one in this room that has every single user in their environment is exactly the same. And because of that, we tend to provision them different systems. We put probably the same operating system, but maybe a slightly different operating system. And that's where we start to see the fracture, if you will. Tons of different applications, tons of different configurations, different drive maps, different printer maps. It gets really, really complex. And we kind of fight this battle of image or version sprawl in our environments. You add to that the unpredictable nature of end users and the fact that they're always breaking things. I mean, things just break, and mostly it's at the user's hands. I think, one of the very interesting things we're now at the event horizon of is, I no longer have to deal with what I call the provisioning lag, which was, I used to call my vendor, order some desktops or some laptops, get them in, lay down the OS or upgrade the OS or harden the OS, later on my image, wheel it out in a cart to the end user where immediately they start breaking it. Even if I haven't given them local admin rights, they're trying to do everything they can. So provisioning lag is a real big deal. Fault tolerance and DR. Anyone here back up every user's desktop every 15 minutes? Of course not, right? The pain and suffering that we would go through, the loss of productivity to bring a user down and do a full system backup every 10 or 15 minutes is like insane. But there might be a way that we can accomplish that, and so that's a little sneak spoiler of what we're going to be talking about today. Anyone have any of these on their network yet? Audience laughs wildly. I think I put that up there. Right. So we're also dealing now with the fact that the workspace, which used to be an x86 Wintel-based thing, is now anything but, right? You've got different OSs, different devices, different networks that people are hopping on and off. And so my hope is that we're going to kind of bring it all the way back to the basics and find some fundamental architecture ideas that allow us to proceed. So I start with this. What is a PC anyway? Well, I think it's somewhat of a blob, but when I look at the different parts, I've got the user profile, which is that goodwill that user has built up on their box over the last 2 or 3 or 4 years since the last refresh. It's the data that they either consume or create. It's the applications that they use to consume or create that data. It's an operating system, and then it's some x86 hardware. And the interesting thing is that, I have this one fail, all fail model in legacy PCs, which is my profile can get, it's statically bound to a physical device. I think that's a bad idea. It can get corrupted. Anyone here using Windows Roman user profiles and super excited about it? Yeah, I didn't think so, right? Because again, the pain and suffering of struggling through that solution is it's almost too much to bear. Data, whether it's inadvertent or malicious, data getting lost is a big, big deal. It's funny. I think it was the FBI, who happens to be a customer, did a study in the 90s that said up to 70% of the intellectual property of all of our companies lives on the hard drives of our PCs. Right? Even though we map them to a home drive, 70% plus lives on these local hard drives. Commodity class hardware, spinning around at 5,400 RPM and not being backed up. I don't know, I think there might be a better solution than that, so we're going to talk about that today. And of course, we have to bow to our applications, keep our operating systems patched and upgraded. So one of the things that I'm going to try to do today is talk about this notion of abstraction. So the first thing we're going to do is let's take data away from the equation. Let's just, for the sake of conceptual thinking, say that we're never going to allow data to live on a local hard drive again. Right? It's going to live in the data center, which is why we named it the data center. And yes, it's more expensive storage, but it's also perhaps a better idea to have it behind, bulletproof glass surfaces under lock and key. And the cool thing is, there are a ton of vendors who can help you do this, right? Whether it's Citrix ShareFile, OneDrive from Microsoft that you probably have with your Office 365 subscription, Dropbox, the actual stuff that this is living on, whether it's Nutanix, SimpliVity, NetApp, SolidFire, EMC, AirWatch, Secure Content Locker, get data off of local hard drives, get it into the data center, choose the solutions or tools that best fit your financial or productivity needs. We happen to make a great little engine in Profile Unity, which Gerard's going to come up and talk about in a second here, that is, I think, incredibly powerful in terms of cutting and pasting that user state, the applications, the data, and the profile off and putting it in the data center. So the next thing we're going to move on to is that user profile. When I think about all of the goodwill, anyone here have any methodology in place when you refresh a user's PC that it is exactly like the old PC that they were provisioned before? Anyone have that down to a science? I mean, it's tough, right? But they always complain. They want that. Where are my icons? Where's my backdrop? Where's my auto signature? Where's my browsing history? Simple solutions like Profile Unity, or our friends at AppSense who are also presenting here today, or I know that Sean and the other gentleman spoke about Amidio. These are the types of solutions we all call user environment management, which cut and paste that user state off of the physical device and get it onto the network. The network meaning your storage of choice, your solution of choice. And there's some functional minimums that I think are required. I'm sorry, this looks like an eye chart, but I promise I'll send this around. So profile portability, drive settings, drive mappings, context-aware switching. If you open this app, then map it to the following printer. Bless you. These are all things that really count, and things that we used to do manually. And that's another example of scale getting away from us. With solutions like this, I set up my configuration, and regardless of how I choose to deliver Windows, that user environment is consistent to the user, whether they're on XP machine, Vista, 7, 10, RDS, Server 2012, R2, VDI, doesn't matter. And this is continued. So Gerard's going to come up and just spend a couple minutes just kind of talking about the problems you guys were trying to solve, maybe your use of Profile Unity and kind of what you're thinking about, and then I'll bring us through some other topics as well. All right, let's leave that right there. So Gerard Straub, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, this is yeah, no, you got to speak loudly. I think that's just for the recording. Oh, yeah, we forgot to tell you you're being recorded too. No pressure.
Okay, Southeast Tech. We're a technical college in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We call it VPC, is what we call our virtual desktop project. A little bit of the background here. We have more than 50 programs, mostly 2-year degrees, have some diplomas, some certificates. It's more of the technical education. And enrollment's around 2,500. Sometimes up, sometimes down. So back to the beginning, we had a laptop program. We started in 1998. We were like one of the first wireless campuses in South Dakota. We required students to buy our own laptop. We put our software on it. When they graduated, they kept it, but they paid for it. required, like, started with our computer programs first, eventually moved to all programs. We wanted all the students to have the right software, the right technology to be able to be successful. Like it says there, licensing is very expensive. The students can't afford to buy it on their own, so we provided that for them. And then imaging all these systems, we had 50 images at least, just for all the different majors. So why did we move to virtual desktops? Our biggest complaint always when a new student came in, I already have a laptop, I don't want to buy another one. One we sell might be more expensive than the one they can get from Walmart. And then we also, the big shift was when we started doing online programming. We can't really give a student a laptop when they're who knows where. So we needed a way to do that. Also cut down on our images, easier to manage, easier to update them. Still maintain that software licensing since it's on our stuff, not theirs. And then each major program gets the right software they need. So let's just look at our current deployment. We're on V36, EUC 6.2. We moved to Windows 8.1 a couple years ago. Little stats, we have 1,700 users that have logged in the last 6 months about. 48,000 actual logins. So they're definitely using it. We have 12 different pools. I put a bullet there. We only have about 75 persistent desktops. There's certain use cases where we have to still do persistent to make it work. It's more our development programs, CIS. 38 programs now are bring your own device. A couple health programs, they use iPads. 13 programs are totally online. Employees, we also moved our whole student information system, ERP, they access it through virtual desktop. That's the only way they get it. There's updates, easy to update. And also computer labs, kiosks. That's where we started our VDI project, making sure we could make it work in labs. Since everyone's kind of got their own device now, the labs are kind of going away. We only have a couple left on campus, but there's still 0 clients just connecting in. And our future deployment, so we still have some required programs that still buy our laptop from us, like our AutoCAD software programs. So our future, we'd like to look at the grid stuff, see if we can do the GPU, make it work, and then maybe remote apps or some of our FA software as well. And a little bit about the now persistent desktops. Our goal from the beginning was to move to now persistent, not have persistent. As we went through our first couple of years with testing, the man hours it takes to manage the persistent was a lot more. Like it says here, save physical resources, server storage. We don't want all those desktops running all the time. We had to create 2,500 desktops. They're all on, running all the time. It just uses a lot of resources. Licensing, we use all concurrent licensing. We don't do any named user license. OS problems, configuration, persistent desktops, just like a physical laptop, the user can mess them up. It's just easy when they log off, it's all wiped out. They come back the next time, they got a clean one. We're keeping what we need to keep as far as applications, settings, registry keys, files, fonts. That's an inside joke. Fonts, we have some
Font challenges.
Yeah. Some programs that even work with fonts, so capturing those when they install them, putting them back when they log back in. That is you.
All right, that's me. So we're going to take questions at the end, but we just, Gerard was nice enough to say, hey, I'll come up and talk a little bit about our deployment, because I think, it speaks volumes to the fact that, again, the problem that they were trying to solve in the beginning of time wasn't, oh man, let's go run out and do some VDI. It sounds great, based on the PowerPoint. It was, hey, we've got a ton of different students coming in and out. We've got these 50 different images that we're trying to manage, and through an assembly of our technology, some VMware technology, so far so good, right? Except for those fonts.
We have it working on it right now.
We did. You built it. You built it. Cool. All right. Thanks, Gerard. All right. So next I want to talk about applications. And, I believe that users really do two things. They either create content or consume it. That's it at the end of the day. They might do a hybrid of those two, but for the most part, that's what they're focused on. And I, too, want to remove data from that blob called the PC. I certainly want to use the user profile. And I'm of the opinion that Now, really 2016, maybe the last part of last year, is the first time that we can actually say that we can now remove all applications from that image, and I'll show you why. Whether anyone here use ZenApp, existing deployments of ZenApp, a couple of hands go up. Anyone streaming applications or using some different technology like maybe semantic SVS, most of us are putting it in the image. Some of us are starting to move to cloud or blank as a service type of models, the Salesforce of the world. Anyone play around with ThinApp or AppV, just from time to time? Now we've got this new stuff, layering. I'm going to talk about it a little bit here today. I think Sean talked about it. I know that our friends at Unidesk are going to be talking about it in another session this afternoon. And what we found is, where app virtualization, encapsulating an application in an actual bubble, has like a 60, maybe 70% success rate. I mean, things like COM, DCOM, device drivers, physical dependencies, on the device, those can't be virtualized, but they can be layered, which I'm going to talk about here in a couple slides. And so it's very interesting, if I remove data, if I start removing the user profile, and now based on a number of different technologies, I have the ability to remove the applications, I'm left with an operating system and x86 hardware. Completely stateless, doesn't care about any single user, and that's my image. And the last time I read, Microsoft's going to start updating operating systems at a slightly more rapid pace for us. So let's keep everything out of that base image. It's an operating system, and x86 hardware, I'll show you in a second, is completely dealer choice. The user state lives on the network. Data, profile, and applications are services that are available when they're needed, not before. That kind of that just-in-time model. And the cool thing is, I can easily apply this to VDI. As a matter of fact, the presentation I'm speaking with you about today came from looking at over 6 million desktops. We have a great little assessment tool, looked at about 6 million desktops, and a lot of us have spent a lot of time, energy, and effort trying to get VDI right. And it's iterative, it's getting better. Everything that the storage vendors are doing, VMware, us, it's all making it easier. So I can take user data, user profile, and applications, and I can statically map that back into a VM, do persistent VDI. I can make these non-persistent virtual machines, and every time we log in, the data, the profile, and the apps are delivered as services available to that VM. Choose my hypervisor of choice, put it on x86 hardware, shared storage, replicate that out, or use SimpliVity or Nutanix, some of these guys that have really cool distributed file systems. You've just done desktop DR. Because again, the stateless part, who cares? It's disposable. An operating system and virtualized hardware, that's easy. This is the stuff I actually care about. So the cool thing is, once I kind of get this model ingrained in my thought process, I can do physical desktops. I need a domain controller. I need a logon share. Basically, state comes from the network back to the devices. We have some customers that are delivering data, profile, and applications to Windows embedded thin clients. No VDI, no hypervisor involved. $300 thin client, $70 piece of software from us, and the storage you already use, and the AD and the domain controllers you already have in house. Some people are starting to do this with ZenApp or RDSH or even up in Azure, where again, user state, I don't care where it lives, but it's a resource or a service that's available. So I can go ahead and have stateless ZenApp or RDSH farms. There's no apps, there's nothing on them, and I just apply it based on the context-aware triggers. Since this is my neat animation, I got it backwards. And the architecture is really quite simple. So from a profile UD perspective, and AppSense is a little different, and some of the other vendors are slightly different. This is probably more like a video. We've got an admin console where I write my rules. So I want to write rules like, so Gerard might wake up tomorrow and say, you know what? When the users double-click on this following application, I want them to print to the 3D printer. I want them to go to the color laser printer, what have you. When they close that app, map them back to the regular laser jet. They might say things like, when a user runs this process, elevate the privilege but kill all child processes, so they can't root the machine by going to file open, run CMD, and tweak out their box, even if you block them down. Those configurations are put on a DFS replicated path, like the netlogon share of your domain controllers. Doesn't have to be there, it's just got the right permissions and it's set up correctly. So again, our profile and our data and our apps are services that are made available regardless of what the endpoint is, as long as it's Windows. And here's the other cool thing. If you want to do mobility, you've got some people that are lugging around iPads or smartphones. I can use Secure Content Locker and AirWatch by VMware and just take that data and port and publish that out to these mobile devices that everyone cares. I don't need my x86 Windows apps on this phone. I don't really need a user profile. Maybe there's some elements I want to layer in. I just want access to my data, right? So, and it's just again, another stepping stone where you kind of enabled mobility just by getting the data out of a VM or off of a physical machine and into a more logical place where we can manage it. The other thing is, look for solutions that are, I guess I'm going to call it future-proof, that it doesn't matter what the delivering technology is, it doesn't matter what version of the operating system that you're on, the same rules and logic and context-aware filters apply. So I'm going to have some users maybe delivering by XenApp, I'm going to have some that are in a hosted view session, I'm going to have some that are physical desktops. I want one console to help me manage that user environment, I want one console to help me manage layering, and one for visibility, which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. And again, we'll share copies of these slides around. So I want to talk about apps for one more second. We now, I believe, have the ability to, yes, we can install them in image. I think we have to rationalize that. Some apps are going to be rewritten and come to us from the cloud or as software as a service. Some will continue to be published or streamed. But the new stuff in layering is, I think, really, really cool. Anyone played around with layering yet? Anyone played around? So in some labs, so I mean, yeah. You're a Udesk fan. Yeah, so you use it. I mean, it's incredible to think that it took us this long to figure this out. I think Udesk was the pioneer in this space personally. Our solution's a little different, and we're going to say that for a later conversation. But what we're basically trying to do is make applications natively portable. Applications are no longer statically bound to a single operating system. You say, well, AppVert did that. Well, yeah, AppVert did that. They made them objects, and we put them in bubbles, and there's some really cool advantages. I could drop Chrome or WebSphere on a USB stick and carry it around the country, but that didn't help me manage it per se. So it's, I believe, the combination of being able to layer these applications, make them natively portable, make them volumes again that are available on the network that can be presented no matter how you deliver Windows to your end users, and away you go. And there's a couple different deployment methods here. Unlike kind of the pre and post capture process of ThinApp, we're thread-based. So instead of taking a picture of the machine, installing an application, taking a picture after, figuring out the deltas and putting that in the package, we're watching the installer routine. So messy applications that write to weird parts of Windows will theoretically be captured. Jack's from the back keeping me honest. He's like, yeah, pretty much. Jack's one of our systems engineers that covers the MSP region and others. And once I do this, that read-only volume is now available to all my users. And so let's say I just did iTunes. If I do iTunes and yet a user wants to create 20 playlists, the playlists are part of the user profile, but that volume is read-only, along with all of its little helper and child services. There's no way that a user can corrupt that application. Anything that happens when I want to do an update, say 10,000 people are mounting that iTunes volume. And by the way, the more people that mount it, the more it writes itself to memory. It's in popular use. It gets faster. I mean, these are the kind of things that you start finding when you deploy this stuff at scale. It's like, wow, scale's working for me. The more people that use iTunes, the hotter it is, the more distributed it is. But anyway, the package is now available, and there's a VMDK deployment option, there's a VHD deployment option. VMDK is a little bit different. If there's any technical questions, I've got Jack in the back, but we basically came up with this notion of an enterprise service bus using RabbitMQ and MongoDB, so that you've got, 4 or 5 clicks, high availability and clustering built in. It's fast, and I think it's fairly incredibly easy to use. So I started thinking about this concept is like a new way to think about your application strategy. Instead of just worrying about one tool to manage MSIs or distribute MSIs, think about now having a number of different tools in your arsenal that together can handle 100% of the applications in your environment. No one's got the silver bullet. I don't have the silver bullet. VMware doesn't. Microsoft doesn't. Amazon doesn't. Citrix doesn't. It takes a combination of these different technologies. But for certain use cases, I think you'll find, or for most use cases, I think you'll find that just about every application can be taken out of the image. Now, there might be advantages to leaving certain applications in the image. If you have something that's 100% in popular use across your entire environment, like maybe Office or maybe a browser, great. Oh, the other thing too is, in combination with app isolation, I always get this question asked, it's like, layering does not solve the IE6 problem, right? I can't run IE6 in a modern version of a different browser using layering, but I can use app isolation or app virtualization in conjunction with layering, and now I've got both sets of resources available. I can both isolate as well as distribute. We've got some technology known as micro-isolation I don't really have a slide on that today, but we can go back in there. And I think the problem that we're trying to solve with natively installed apps is that when I start doing what I've been doing natively installed apps, I just get this corrosion and rust that builds up over time. And wait for it, there it is. Eventually this happens, and I call that the worst case computing, because if a user might need, 8 gigs of memory, put it in their machine. If they might need, an 8-socket, CPU, put it in there. They might need an application, put it in the image. My favorite story is insurance company down in, I think it's Birmingham, Alabama. They have a duck as their mascot. I probably shouldn't mention their name. But we did an assessment for them. We looked at all of their applications, like 18,000 users, and the CIO, I remember the wrap-up meetings, like, okay, got this application called WriteFax. I know I own and have 18,000 copies of it installed. What's that next column? And we said, oh, that's the number of times it's been launched in the last 30 days. So it only says 300. I said, yeah. I said, what's the next column? It says 68. So that's the time that it's actually ever been commonly used, concurrently used. You own 18,000 copies, you patch it, you upgrade it, you manage it, you pay that vendor. Sorry, WriteFax, if you're in the room. No more than a couple hundred have ever used it over the course of the last 30 days. And in a concurrent standpoint, 60 people plus have ever used it. What are you doing? You're just overpaying, we're over-managing, we're over-patching. Put WriteFax in a layer. Figure out the rule to apply WriteFax to the people that actually need it and use it. Make it available if other people suddenly say, I need it. We have a great story of another university where it was a class on this fly. They're like, oh man, we need this new application. Called the help desk. Jack, you probably know this story. The application came down. Users didn't even have to reboot. Suddenly, icon appears on the desktop. They're off and running. And that's the kind of power that this can get to. We're in the early days. I mean, we're all writing the book on this stuff right now. And you literally will be the first deployments, large-scale deployments of some of this stuff over time. We have some early adopters, and I'm psyched that the rest of us are doing a great job being fast followers. User experience and monitoring. Here's why I think this counts. I'm a big fan of saying that if you can measure something, you can manage it, and if you can measure something, it certainly matters. And as we start taking elements away from the VC and distributing them across our networks or to different clouds, I think that we have kind of put our eggs in one basket. Maybe not, as a commodity class basket as the PC, a more expensive basket. So we certainly should watch it. The ability to do diagnostics, the ability to prove that problem we were trying to solve. Let's say the problem that we were trying to solve is I want their login experience to be quicker, right? It was a minute 20 logins, I want to get it down to 30 seconds. Yeah, I can use a stopwatch, but there's a ton of other metrics that are happening that I want to be able to watch. So we think that monitoring and diagnostics are a real big deal. It's part of our suite. And I think it allows you to manage the things you care about most. One of the big challenges of VDI has always been IOPS, right? The unpredictable, volatile nature of end users, and if a YouTube video pops up or a new app, gets chatty on the network and starts paying storage, I want to know about that before it brings down my environment, before I start having a degradation of user experience for the other people that might not even be using that application. And without getting too geeky, and I know this looks like an eye chart, give me indications, give me spark lines of the way things are trending. Are my login processes getting faster? Are my application launch times getting quicker? Do I see a certain area of storage or a certain application that's not really behaving or out of band with its peers? And I wasn't going to show this, so it's not really confidential. We'll call it, we'll be under a friend DA in this room. But we just released this new, we're about to release a new element called Stratosphere Search. Historically, there's 300 plus metrics that we're calculating, both from inside the guest, across the wire, across the different applications, Linux and Windows, all bringing it back to that console that I showed you before. It's a lot of stuff. So we want to make it easier. So we kind of took a page from the Google book and we said, let's give people search. So when a user calls the help desk and says, this app or my name is, let me bring them up. And let me start seeing what's going on. So I can bring up, let's say in this case I searched on David, got a user named David, a machine named David, I can see a couple of different resources that he's using. Yep, that's the guy. I'm going to click down on him. And what I end up getting is a 360-degree view of what networks is he chatting across, what's the configuration of either the VM or the physical machine that he's on, what storage pools is he accessing, and then of course different pop-outs and grading and badging systems. So with one click, I'm now able, no matter what the architecture is, whether it was distributed in a cloud, or had some elements in Azure, whether I'm using Office 365, there's nothing I'm missing. And so either time to remediation or time to get that user back into a productive state, is clicks, not, go get a coffee break, go take lunch, it's going to take me a couple hours, and it certainly isn't let me FedEx in some more laptops and re-image them and put them on the user's desk. So again, kind of our claim or our contribution to this space is user environment management. That's getting your data, your apps, and your profile off. That's Profile Unity. Our contribution for application layering is FlexApp. Jack in the back or any of us over at the table would be happy to give you a demo or go any deeper than you'd like us to. And of course, Stratosphere is our visibility and assessment engine. This is actually an older slide. We're up over 6 million users, and we've done a lot of collaboration. So chances are your storage vendor, whether it's NetApp, EMC, Nutanix, SimpliVity, they have access to this software along with some great channel partners that are out there who, believe it or not, are also helping us all write this book of what end-user computing is going to look like. I certainly don't think it's going to look like the physical PC, and it's really exciting to be contributing to that space. So, ton of different customers, and I don't throw this up to be a glory slide. I throw it up because there were different problems that each one of these customers was trying to solve. Not everyone said, I want to do VDI, come help me make VDI with user environment management, app layering, and visibility. No, they said, I want to get data at rest encrypted. Okay, interesting. I want to upgrade the following application or make the agility of upgrading applications a more seamless process. Or I just want to know what's going on. We have one large software manufacturer up there in the upper left, 100,000 users across the world. I just want to know what's going on, because I don't. I mean, I have some idea of different things that I'm running in System Center or Scala, but I don't really know what my users are consuming. I know what I configured and gave them, but I don't really know what they're up to. And of course, our favorite is Gerard. That was it. But so anyway, I know I'm running a little bit short on time here. I want to keep us on schedule, but this is the way I think about it. 5 steps to universal future-proof computing. First thing is get your users under management. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's VDI or XenApp or physical desktops. Doesn't matter. Get them under management. Number 2 is use these new solutions that are available to you to get your apps under management. They don't need to be the Wild West anymore. You don't need to overbuy, over-provision, over-patch. Take that control back. Number 3 is data. Whether you're trying to enable mobile devices with secure content locker and AirWatch, or ShareFile if you're using Citrix, or there's a ton of other solutions out there like I showed up before. Then, and only then, choose how you want to deliver Windows. Because all my stuff now is on the network. User state lives on the network. So whether I want to do physical PCs, VDI, from any different vendor that's out there, mobility, your choice. Maybe you just want to publish apps with profiles. You don't even care about monitoring. It's your option now. I think last, and certainly most important, because it's the expensive stuff, that's when you start choosing your infrastructure. So that's when you go around to the SolidFires and the NetApps and the Perdix Datas that are all here today and say, this is what our model is going to look like. Here's the problem we're trying to solve. Here's the problem that we haven't solved yet, but I think you might with your replication or maybe your file system, Mr. Vendor. And I think that's a great way to start. So I know I speak in one long breath for about an hour there, but I wanted to give you all an opportunity to either ask some questions. It can be technical, it can be theory, it can be whatever. But with that, I just want to thank you for your time, and we'll take any questions that you guys have. I just love Will Ferrell, so I just going to give you the picture of the dart in the net from, but I thought that sent the wrong message. So. But anyway, but thanks all for coming. Any questions that anyone has? I know we kind of blasted a bunch of different topics and technologies out there. Useful? Right? As a methodology, just things to take back, and maybe, yeah.
I have a question. Is anybody in the room that's currently using Liquidware Labs and doing it for physicals?
So I'm not sure if you are, but I can say how we got into that space, which was a few thousand seat VDI deployment at a telco company that runs with AT&T. And the question just came up in a meeting, like, hey, we're using Profile Unity to manage just user profiles for the VDI deployment. Can we do it for physical? This is like 3 years ago. We were like, sure. I mean, there's really no limit. I mean, there's certain environmental variables. Jack, keep me honest here. Yep. That come into play. But yeah, we probably have a quarter of the users now have let the tools that they first developed and adopted for VDI are now bleeding into the physical desktop deployments as well. And I think it's super exciting because a lot of times running Windows on a hypervisor is a distracting idea. I mean, it's fun to overcome those challenges and architect it right, but at the end of the day, is it really making our life easier? Yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. And I can put you in touch with a bunch of folks that are doing it. And, some have had phenomenal experiences, and some are like, yep, we're going to use elements of it. Maybe just driving printer mapping or profile portability because they're going between OSs or something. It's a great question.
I have a follow-up.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, on the same vein, for the hardware/firmware for either desktops or thin clients or zero clients.
Yep.
And I'll be honest, I've only kind of looked at FlexApp, but I haven't looked at the whole suite.
Totally, yep.
do you manage that as well?
So yes, no, and maybe, because I mean there are certain restrictions that Microsoft places on the Windows embedded operating systems, which is different than a full-blown version of Windows. Example is, I think that in 8 there was a requirement that you couldn't have an external volume over X gigs because that was now considered out of the OS, and you need to get VDI licenses for that.
Yep.
So yes, no, and maybe is a long-winded way of saying let's chat about what you're actually trying to accomplish, because you might want to think about just commodity class PCs locked down at the edge and not thin clients. And yeah, you have a hard drive that can break, but the things are like telephones now. Everything that we care about, that dial tone that we care about, comes from the data center. That device on the edge is stateless, worthless, disposable, but there are licensing issues to think about. So yeah, Jack can follow up with you for sure on that. That's Jack. Blue shirt. Bill Wolf, right? 3-man Wolfpack. Any other questions? Cool. All right, well, hey, appreciate everyone attending the session. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you for